Jade Benning, she did not call 911. She did better than calling 911. Jade Benning called the one person who knew where she was, knew who she was with, would know that she was calling scared and for help. Now, Jade Jackson said as soon as she heard her best friend's voice, she knew she was scared and she needed help. Jade Benning did better. She made sure that Blaze Taylor was not the only person to hear her last words. She made sure that you heard her last words. She called Jade Jackson and said, Blaze, you're scaring me. Nigella heard him say, you're scaring me. I know you put something in my drink. I knew my drink tasted funny. Let me see what's in your pocket. Let me see. I know you put something in my drink because I can't even walk straight. I can't feel my legs. You put something in my drink. You did this so something would happen to the baby. I think I'm about to pass out.
From the trial transcript of State of Tennessee v. Blaze Taylor, page 137, line 20, she did not call 911. She did better than calling 911. She called the one person who knew where she was, knew who she was with, would know that she was calling scared and for help. The prosecutor's voice hung in the silence of the courtroom for a full 5 seconds before he continued. That 5 seconds is the entire case. A 24-year-old woman, 25 weeks pregnant, felt her legs go numb, tasted something metallic in her lemonade, and instead of dialing emergency services, she dialed her best friend. That decision, captured in a 6-minute and 9-second phone call, would become the fulcrum on which a first-degree murder trial turned. Before we go deeper into what the closing arguments actually reveal, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Files 911. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Now picture this: a phone screen, still lit, the call timer frozen at 0609. That number, 6 minutes and 9 seconds, is not a random timestamp, it is a window. It is the exact duration Jade Benning spent verbally documenting her own poisoning while the man she believed had done it stood next to her, saying nothing. That frozen call screen is the visual anchor for everything that follows. It represents the gap between what Blaze Taylor planned for that night and what actually happened. He had brought cocaine, mixed it into her drink, and waited. He did not plan for her to call Nigella Jackson. The phone call is the evidence he could not scrub, and the closing arguments in this case circled it like prosecutors and defenders orbiting a single, unmovable fact. The prosecution's closing, delivered first, built its architecture around that call. The state reminded the jury of the timeline Jade and Blaze were painting canvases for the baby's nursery. At 8:29 p.m, a selfie showed no symptoms. At 9:10, another photo. Sometime in that window, the state argued Blaze slipped a lethal dose of cocaine into her drink.
He goes to the date night. The testimony that you heard from Nigella Jackson and from Keontae Jones about them stopping by, that whole time that he's shuffling those Uno cards, he has the cocaine to put in her drink. He gets there at 7 p.m. They show up at 7:30 for 30 minutes talking about spades and having random conversation. And he has it. He does not call 911 until 9:29:27. I'm sorry. The call that Jade makes is at 9:29:27. EMTs don't get to her until 9:50. Dr. Carney's testimony is that Jade was given the cocaine that she ingested orally 30 minutes before. You have this photograph from 8:29 that shows the progress. She has not been given anything at that point. The next image that you have is at 9:10 p.m. It is somewhere between this point and the next image of their progress that she has to have been given the cocaine in her drink. "9:24 p.m. is the next time that there is an event. It is after that 30-minute mark. She has finished the painting. You heard Dr. Carney's testimony about how the symptoms would start off not severe, but it would escalate really quickly. And 9:24 to 9:28, you have 4 minutes. 4 minutes after he has put this in her drink. He is there and knows what he has done. And for 4 minutes, takes picture after picture with Jade Benning. Blaze Taylor went there with a plan. There was a plan. He has already poisoned her, and he is taking pictures with her. Blaze Taylor did not plan for Jade Benning calling Najee Jackson. That hadn't happened yet. The last event that happens is that deleted picture, and within 45 seconds, Jade is calling her best friend. What did you do? She is calling her best friend scared, and she is not talking to Najee. She is talking to Blaze Taylor. 6 minutes and 9 seconds. He is there. Jade is telling him, I can't feel my legs. I can't walk straight. He is there, and he is not saying anything to her. Like, Jade, what is wrong? What's going on? Let me help you. Come on, sit down. What is happening? You seemed fine just a second ago. What can I get you? Do you want me to call someone? You didn't hear testimony of any of that from Najee Jackson. You also heard Blaze Taylor tell Detective Smith that third interview. He was describing what happened that night, and he said that Jade was trying to lay down. He didn't tell him, so then I helped her. He says that Jade was talking to him. Talking to him. And then he says she wasn't saying stuff right. Maybe she was kind of talking to Najee. Now, at this point, when he tells this to Detective Smith, Najee Jackson has already told everybody exactly what she heard her best friend said. She's told the people at the hospital, the first officer, the second officer, the detective, family and friends. She's told Blaze Taylor to his face, like, you didn't tell them what she said.
A concentration so high that Dr. Aaron Carney, the medical expert, testified Jade would have lost her pulse within 30 minutes. By 90:24, she was struggling. At 90:29, she dialed Niga. The prosecutor played the call for the jury, then repeated the words Jade said, audible on the recording even as Niga begged her to explain, "You're scaring me. I know you put something in my drink. I knew my drink tasted funny. Let me see what's in your pocket. You did this so something would happen to the baby." The state paused there and delivered the line that became its moral refrain, a 5-word indictment. She called her best friend. The words landed like a verdict, not an opinion. They crystallized the betrayal, a woman dying, reaching not for a stranger on a 9/11 line, but for the one person who knew her voice, her fear, her truth. The prosecution then widened the lens. They introduced Apple Denny, a former girlfriend of Blaze Taylor, who testified that years earlier he had tried to convince her to help him put something in another woman's drink to induce an abortion without consent.
You also have the proof and testimony of Apple Denny. She described to you an event that happened several years before in 2017, but when she heard about what happened to Jade Benning and that Jade Benning was dating Blaze Taylor, she knew immediately. She reached out and contacted people because she knew she had information that it was him. She testified, told you about very personal things that happened to her, but she described what happened over a period of 2 days. Her testimony was she had to talk him out of putting something in another girl's drink who was refusing to have an abortion so that he could cause the abortion without her knowing. Blaze Taylor chose cocaine. He chose what to put in that drink. He chose a substance that you have heard from multiple witnesses is known to cause spontaneous abortions. Dr. Carney described that it is known to cause a placental abruption. And she also testified that that did not happen to Jade Benning. It did not happen because he killed her. I submit to you that there is proof and evidence that you have heard over the last week that proves beyond a reasonable doubt all 4 counts of the indictment, including the first-degree premeditated murder of Jade Benning.
The state used this to establish motive and pattern. Blaze Taylor did not want this baby. He had given Jade an ultimatum, him or the child, and she chose the child.
Blaze Taylor chose this. You saw when he got back in touch with Jade Benning, they had a conversation that explained what happened back in November of 2022. This is kind of a somewhat joking conversation, but Jade Benning said, "You gave me a crazy ultimatum." Apple Denny testified to that same ultimatum. You have Jade Benning's decision to the ultimatum he gave her. She chose her baby. She did not choose Blaze Taylor. She did not make the choice that Xavier Winford made back in 2017. She chose her baby. Apple Denny gave that same description of the ultimatum, and you have that there was no contact from November 6th to December 31st of 2022. Jade Benning was planning for her baby. Her life was going on. But you also heard from her family and friends that during that time, she was not posting anything about her pregnancy to social media. She had not posted anything to social media about her pregnancy on the day she was murdered. It was not publicized. When Blaze Taylor comes back into Jade Benning's life, this is the evidence that you heard was not he came back welcoming this opportunity with open arms. He tells her very specifically in these messages that your life is changing. This is going to be a thing for you. At no point does he say we, me, ours. This is going to change Jade's life. And he is not portraying it as a positive, telling her she shouldn't be so optimistic. And Jade Benning, just as her friends described her, always optimistic, still said, okay, but I'm going to be able to make this work. Blaze Taylor did not go to any of her pregnancy appointments with her OBGYN. Not one. She asked him very specifically, sending him the calendar event and specifically saying, I really hope you can make it. I would love for you to be there when I found you.
He had ignored her prenatal appointments, hidden his paternity from his family, and texted another woman the night before the murder that everything is going to work out. The state's closing wove these threads into a narrative of premeditation. He chose the substance, cocaine, because it is known to cause spontaneous abortion, when that didn't happen, because he killed her first. The medical examiner still couldn't rule the manner of death as homicide, settling on undetermined. But the state told the jury that didn't matter. The law of felony murder meant if he caused her death while committing the felony of poisoning, he was guilty of both her murder and the unborn child's. Then came the defense closing, and it is here that the structural DNA of this case splits into parallel narratives.
And say to yourselves, I want to live in La La Land. I want everything to be perfect. Life isn't perfect. And the older you get, the more you learn that. The older you get, the harder it gets. Trust me when I tell you that. And those of us over the age of 50 can tell you about things that we experience in life that are good, that are ugly, things that we've learned along the way. How we treated people in the past, how we interacted with people in the past, how we respond to people in the past, and how we respond to people now. You learn along the way. But what life isn't is a perfect cookie cutter La La Land. That's not life. So let's talk about Blaze and Jade. They met on Hinge. They dated for a little while in terms of, I shouldn't say date, they interacted for a little while, but never really met up. And remember, these are young people. They had casual relationships, not just with each other, but with other people too. And it wasn't just...
The defense attorney stood and reminded the jury of their oath, to hold the state to its burden, to not let sympathy become evidence. He pointed out that nobody saw Blaze put cocaine in the drink.
Who is in their 20s who gets someone pregnant that they don't know within 90 days, I'm willing to bet at least 50-50 are not happy. That's real life stuff. That's not a nefarious fact. That's just real life stuff. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today about, is real life stuff. Because if you remember, you heard from Nigeria, they were talking about possibly going to Indiana for an abortion. Remember, Nigeria was saying it was 2 weeks, 8 weeks, you better...
No cup tested positive. The lead detective allowed the apartment complex's surveillance footage to be erased before it could be reviewed. The missing cup that the state implied was cleaned and hidden by Blaze was actually photographed on the kitchen counter the whole time. The crime scene investigators simply overlooked it. The defense argued that Jade herself had used drugs and alcohol, that she had met with a drug dealer that day, and that the cocaine metabolite cocathylene found in her system required both cocaine and alcohol. Yet she, a chef with a sensitive palate, never tasted anything stronger than a funny flavor. The defense framed the 911 call as the act of a frantic man who ran outside to find the address, put her on her side as instructed, and cooperated fully. They ask if he was so calculating, why invite the best friend to stay earlier that evening? Why call 911 at all? The two closing arguments now sit side by side in the court record, and the irony amplification is inescapable. The defense said only one person called 911. The state said she called her best friend. That same phrase echoed again, the second time as the central pivot of the trial. Both sides agreed on the timeline. Both agreed on the phone call. The difference lay in what the jury was asked to infer from a 6-minute and 9-second recording of a woman begging for her life, while the man in the room offered no words of concern, no attempts to help, no questions about what was wrong. The state asked the jury to hear that silence as guilt. The defense asked them to hear it as shock. And now the unanswered question, the one that reframes this case as a thriller rather than a domestic tragedy during those 3.5 minutes after the call ended and before he dialed 911. Blaze Taylor called his father. The call lasted 30 seconds. His father told him to hang up and call 911. But the prosecution noted that the bathroom cup later found by the sink appeared to have been rinsed. The camera that normally covered the kitchen had been moved to the bedroom, its view blocked. There is a gap, not in the timeline but in the logic. If you are innocent and your girlfriend is dying, why do you not immediately dial 911? Why call your father first? Why is the surveillance camera repositioned?
Who is in their 20s who gets someone pregnant that they don't know within 90 days, I'm willing to bet at least 50-50, are not happy. That's real life stuff. That's not a nefarious fact. That's just real life stuff. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today about, is real life stuff. Because if you remember, you heard from Nigeria, they were talking about possibly going to Indiana for an abortion. Remember, Nigeria was saying it was 2 weeks, 8 weeks, you better...
The defense said there simply was not enough time for a cleanup.
You did this so something would happen to the baby. Jade Benning, she did not call 911. She did better than calling 911. Jade Benning called the one person who knew where she was, knew who she was with, would know that she was calling scared and for help. Now, Jade Jackson said as soon as she heard her best friend's voice, she knew she was scared and she needed help. Jade Benning did better. She made sure that Blaze Taylor was not the only person to hear her last words. She made sure that you heard her last words. She called Nigeria Jackson and said, Blaze, you're scaring me. Nigeria heard him say, you're scaring me. I know you put something in my drink. I knew my drink tasted funny. Let me see what's in your pocket. Let me see. I know you put something in my drink because I can't even walk straight. I can't feel my legs. You put something in my drink. You did this so something would happen to the baby. I think I'm about to pass out. Jade Benning ensured that you heard her words that night where she was so excited to be having a date night with Blaze Taylor. Her best friend came over. They were the only two people there. Dr. Aaron Carney gave a very specific medical explanation that Jade Benning would have gone pulseless within 30 minutes of ingesting that concentration of cocaine dissolved in a liquid. There were only two people there. The proof and testimony that you have heard over the last week from Jade Benning's family and friends.
The state said the cleanup was the crime itself. The ticking clock moment is this: if that phone call to Niga had lasted just 30 seconds shorter, if she hadn't heard the words, "You put something in my drink," Would there even be a trial? That question is the hinge on which reasonable doubt must swing. The moral refrain, delivered for the third and final time, lands here. She called her best friend, not 9/11, not a stranger, the person who knew her. That action, frozen in a phone log, is the hard evidence. The state entered the call recording into evidence as Exhibit 47A. The defense challenged its interpretation but could not erase the words. The jury now holds the transcript, the selfies, the toxicology report, and the timeline. The document we want you to examine yourself is the official 9/11 call transcript and the corresponding cell phone extraction log, both publicly filed in Davidson County Criminal Court under case number 2023 A412. We've linked it in the description. Read it, and then answer this one question in the comments based on the timestamps. How many seconds passed between Jade Benning saying, "I think I'm about to pass out," and Blaze Taylor dialing 911? And does that gap, in your view, constitute consciousness of guilt or the chaos of a medical emergency? If you believe that court records speak louder than headlines, that a best friend's phone call can be the difference between a perfect crime and a guilty verdict, then like this video, share it, subscribe to Crime Files 911, and turn on notifications. We don't close cases. We read the docket until the final verdict is read.